This is close, but I think it's a 3-bet. This board I could bet, but I'm just going to go with check range. So, I mean, I'm really high in my range now. I'm supposed to jam in theory, and I think that's what I'm going to do. The reason is he's still incentivized. He's got a lot of bluffs that have equity, and he's also got a lot of trips. He's going to be continuing to bet his trips here. And I need to deny equity and or get money in good against trips before the river gets really dicey. If I have a full house, I slow play. But 6-8, good enough to jam for value, but also needs a lot more protection than a full house, which has all of his draws drawing dead. So normally I don't bet a hand of this caliber on this board, like a dry nut flush draw. But because I have 3 spades, I block so many hands that can continue that I like betting. And again, because I block 3 spades and a bunch of high cards, I'm going to check now because it becomes more likely that he has straights and 2-pair when I don't block those. And I'm actually just going to give up. I really expect him to bet his straights. All right. He might check the nut straight to check raise. Yeah. Okay, the 7 high straight makes sense. But I really felt like if he got here, like I played my hand like I have a set or like 6-3 or something. So I think if he had 8-7, he would bet. So I went for the bet check bet bluff despite having pretty bad blockers for it with the 3 spades. And this is actually a check fold on the left. I know it feels crazy to fold an overpair with a backdoor flush draw, but this board is so wet. It's really, really important to focus on how dynamic a board is. Not only because of what your equity is going to look like with this dry overpair against their full range, but also because, you know, we need to defend something like 2/3 of our range here. It actually becomes really easy because of how many hands have additional equity, and this hand just doesn't. So I paused there and time banked, even though I knew I was folding, because I wanted to explain that concept because I think it's very important. Here we face half pot bet. This is supposed to just be a call, but I'm very tempted to just rip it in now. At least I think it's supposed to be a call. I'm just going to rip it in now. Like he's going to have a lot of just like ace, ace, queen, 10 that are in a really tough spot against this jam, but then are going to have easy check folds on the turn. And like I want to get money in against ace, king, queen, X on the flop. Here on the left is the absolute dream in PLO. You 3-bet. The board is one where your range is in so much trouble, you're so screwed, but you actually flop the nuts and it's rainbow and you have 2 backdoor flush draws to boot. I never check raise this flop with anything. Although against a specific opponent type, you might have to start raising there. And it is a little interesting here. I think we keep slow playing, but it is tempting to put it in. If we didn't have a flush draw to go along with it, I would put it in. Okay, so he didn't put in the last bet over here on the left. I wonder what he had. A bluff. So it was good that we kept him in there. Man, if I keep flopping the nuts, it's going to be hard for him. 9-9 can sometimes 3-bet this board, but when you have 9-9-7, he's very, very likely to have some kind of bluff. So I'm a lot less likely to. And here, I guess we're going to keep calling. Let's keep in his bluffs. Interesting. A couple of straight flushes just got there. We're obviously not folding. The question is, are we raising? Kind of feel like he's not going to call because he needs to have like, I don't know. It's just a raise. And if he's got me, he's got me. But I just feel like he's folding. He's been folding to basically all my raises so far, I think. But I've had it every time. So he's been making correct folds. We have to call this check raise, but we're not thrilled. It's kind of interesting now. I just think he's going to continue betting a lot of his hands that were good hands on the flop. So just take the stab there and hope for the best. Obviously, if I get check raises, I'm getting blown off a lot of equity, but it is what it is. Let's make a loose 3-bet. Match him on the loose 3-bets. We go for our first loose 3-bet. We get the 4-bet, and this is not a good hand to call a 4-bet with. So we're going to fold. You'll notice here I'm not slow playing top set because I just have a ton of equity against hands that can put in a lot of money. But on the other board, top two pair on this board would not have as much equity. Interesting spot now. I'm going to pot, and this accomplishes a couple of things. It gives me board coverage after potting on board pairs. It also might fold out dry 7-6, which is ambitious, but it's definitely possible. And it also protects my hand a little bit. Without the jack, I wouldn't have gone for it, but it just checked back. A leak I used to have, and I think a leak a lot of people have, is that they are afraid to bet when facing a check raise is awkward for their hand, or they're going to waste their hand against a check raise, both for value and as a bluff or semi-bluff. But the fact of the matter is you get check raised like 3 to 10% of the time, and the rest of the time you don't get check raised. And so always you should be optimizing for the most value against their full strategy and everything that you're going to see them do. But yeah, oftentimes that'll mean not worrying so much about the 10% check raise. And yes, when that happens, it sucks, but it's usually not going to happen. And you're trying to make EV against their whole strategy. All right, so we do get check raised. Min. I mean, you're not supposed to fold this hand to a min check raise, but I really don't think he's bluffing. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 to 1, and I think he's bluffing very infrequently, less than 20% of the time. I kind of think so. It's such an exploitable fold. All right, I'm streaming. I can't fold this. Yeah. Nice hand. All right, we flop something. Are we going to finally win a pot? We'll see. Yeah. Well, I shouldn't say yeah. We're probably like 65% equity. Let's put the rest in. He's going to have like kings with a flush draw. Okay, we are going to win the pot. I'm pretty sure. So with king 10 queen, often I will check, but not when I have the ace as well. And pot is my only sizing on this turn, so no choice but to pot, even though I kind of want to keep him in. We get one of the only bad rivers for us, and he leads. I mean, I just think he has it. It's really like, do I think he always has it? No, he's certainly capable, but I block the queen, making queen jack and queen 9 less likely. And yes, it makes queen 7 less likely and queen queen, but for the most part, I think it's very likely as a hand like jack jack or 9-9 here. He needs to be bluffing, 30% of the time. I think he's probably bluffing 15% of the time, so it's just a fold, unfortunately. It's kind of sick to pot here, representing queen queen, but you can only do that occasionally. A really interesting one, I guess, since it's a heads up pot. Yeah, I get bet this. Just so many relevant blockers and just good stuff going on. If there were like 4 people in the pot, it'd be a little riskier to risk getting check raised with a hand of this caliber. And right table, we're going to blast off. It's actually interesting to go bet check bet here because we block the straight as well, but we'll go with blast off. And actually this kind of this is a pretty reasonable give up with the ace of spades because we've kind of already said we have a high spade and we block the turn 2 pair and set with a 7 and we block straights. So I'm actually going to make a nitty give up here. He did have the set, so he was folding most likely. But those are the spots where I do think about what I block because I don't have strong reads on players, whether they're going to overfold or underfold this spot. But yeah, we didn't get check raised on the flop, so we eliminate some of those combos. And so blocking like 8-7-6 and 9-7-7, as well as like 10-9 with a spade or 10-9 with 2 pair. This is a call, but it's a pretty uncomfortable call. It might not even be a call, honestly. And now I'm in a really awkward spot. Just got less awkward. It's supposed to be a check, but I just really feel like he would jam with hands that are good enough to continue here, right? I just feel like he's going to fold half the time, and then I have my equity. So it's just really profitable, even though I don't think it's supposed to be in theory. Clytus Lukes asks, if it ever gets to me losing heads up, whenever I lose a few blinds to someone heads up, I feel a bit steamy, much more than 6 max usually. Does that ever happen to you? Yeah, I know what you mean, because when you lose at 6 max, you're not necessarily losing to somebody. I mean, you're technically losing to different somebodies, and maybe even one person takes all the pots from you. But when you're losing heads up, it's just like being bested. And if you're a competitive person like me, yeah, that can be more emotionally upsetting. So we're deeper here. So I kind of go with, I use small sizings with most of my range. You don't want to commit a ton of money on a dynamic-ish board like this when you're this deep. And now I just want to keep betting. When I'm blocking king, king, and jack 8 as well, when you're checking here, you're hoping to get him to bet jack 8 on the turn in river. Blocking the second straight as well as having the nut straight, you never really want to slow play those. A lot of people think it's the opposite. They think because I block so many good hands, I need to trap. But you need to think about what you're looking to accomplish. And obviously, any hand that you can trap with can induce bluffs. But you need to think about inducing value bets with your traps. If the blockers are not conducive to inducing a lot of value bets, it's probably not the right hand to choose to trap with. Hey, Phil, do you have a single opponent that you wished you could play but have no chance anymore for different reasons? PLO opponents. I enjoyed playing against Isildur the most because he's like the smartest player that I played against. And what I mean by that is like his fundamentals were not as good as my fundamentals, but a lot of poker is about outguessing your opponent. And he's the one opponent who, whenever I played him, it kind of just felt like he was doing the outguessing. He was usually one step ahead. And so it was, who would win was a matter of, how far ahead he was in the leveling war compared to how much better my fundamentals were. But I don't think I could list 4, but he comes to mind first for sure. Topher Drews is playing board and or tired is perhaps the biggest leak in a good player's game. Yeah, I agree. Because, I mean, well put. It's because they're the most dangerous because people don't think about them as big leaks. I'm going to go ahead and check this 8. It's pretty weak 8 in the 3-bet pot on the right. And the question is, do I want to go ahead and raise now, or do I want to call and figure it out on the river? I think I want to just call, because by the time I make a big raise on the turn and get called on the river, it gets slightly dicey. It's really interesting that he's going for a small sizing here. I'm not sure what to make of that. I don't think I can go smaller because, like, I'm not ripping kings. Miniko asks, do you wait for proof / showdown that someone is trying to counter adjust? If not, what other factors come into play for you? Yes, I think it's extremely important to wait for proof at showdown or significant sample size stats to determine whether somebody is countering. Because usually if you're making an exploit, it's because if their leak is that they underbluff the river, and so you're just folding a lot. For them to have counter adjusted, not only do they have to fix their leak of not bluffing enough, they have to take it too far in the other direction. And so it's easy for variance to make you feel like they've made an adjustment because they've bet a few more rivers than usual lately. But I think it's really important to wait for evidence in the form of, like I said, a showdown or multiple showdowns, or a statistical deviation over a large sample, so you know it's significant, or you think it's significant. It doesn't. You don't need absolute proof. He's not expecting a lot of bets here, so let's go for one. What I mean by that is that when the nuts doesn't change from the flop to turn, and I'm going to have a lot of hands that are happy to check it down and realize my equity, people don't expect to see a lot of bets. So when they have a good hand, they opt often to bet themselves. It's not the craziest check back because my hand can't really improve except on a board pair. I'm going to go for it this time. The challenge for some players is they think of this as a slow play, and it's not. It's not really a slow play. It's just this hand is not that great on this board when a lot of money goes in. And so it's just protecting, giving me board coverage, giving my check back range board coverage on like board pairs, for example. And now we show it down. CP says, props to Zephyr for stepping up to the challenge once again. Yes, I have mad respect for you for battle. I mean, you battled me now twice on stream. You're the only action I find, it seems. It helps stream out. It helps me out a lot with the stream, because otherwise I'd be relegated to 1-2 PLO or 1-2 no limit hold'em right now. Right table, I don't know what I want to do here. I think it might just be a fold, even with top pair. It's just against pot. It's so tough to turn something that can call again. Matthew Dent says, any great Rail Heaven stories? That's a good question. You would think I would have some, right? No, I don't think so. So one of my friends who if you followed back then, you would know about Z-Dang. He's a very competitive guy, but like I really don't know how to explain him. But he would occasionally like to trash talk. And there was a hand that, he wasn't even in the hand. It was a hand that I won. So I think we're playing 40 big blind cap, no limit hold'em. And I open to like 2 big blinds, and Gus Hansen shoves 40 big blinds with like ace 10 offsuit. And I call with ace king. And Gus says, whoops, wrong button. And Z says, should have pressed close table. And I thought it was really funny. But it's not much of a story, is it? Thank you for keeping me company in the chat, and for asking some really good questions, and making me laugh a bit too. And I will see you sometime. Feel free to reach out to me in, I guess, comments here, but also reaching out to me on Twitter is a good place to get a hold of me. And if I didn't get to some of your questions, or if you have a response to this that I'm going to miss because I'm signing off, let me know. Thanks again, and take care.